So we used to have these youth classes once a month, and I was about 16 or 17, so I was in the age range. And once a month we'd get called downstairs on Wednesday to, instead of attending the service, we'd have like a smaller class type setting for people who were youth age. So anyway, around Halloween, a few weeks before, we had one of these classes, and the youth pastor decided to start preaching about Halloween, or talking to us about Halloween. Now, I had a very secular view of Halloween, so I had never thought much about it. But anyway, they started presenting us with all this material about how Halloween was actually like basically Satan's holiday. I remember that they told us that carving pumpkins was a old pagan ritual, and it used to symbolize holding souls or something. And then I also remember them talking about Satan sacrifices that they used to do, that people who are Satanists would kidnap people and kill them at the altars of Satan on Halloween. I mean, all kinds of these things I never heard of and still don't know whether they're true or not. These things, these specific points, were used to say that Halloween was evil. Halloween was Satan's holiday, we shouldn't celebrate it. Now, this worked relatively well on me. I was pretty horrified at the time, and I had all this information in front of me. How could I deny the printouts and wherever they had gotten this information from? And so I was pretty, well, I don't know, but I was pretty convinced at this point. But the thing that really sealed the deal for me, being very anti-Halloween for most of my Pentecostal years, was the church drama, the Halloween drama that they had. Every year, up until I think a year or two before I left church, they did stop doing this drama. But I know that they did it at least 4 or 5 times. It was very popular. I believe I saw it the second year it was performed. But what it was a drama put on by the youth group, and the youth leader was the one who wrote and directed the drama. And it was always performed the Wednesday closest to Halloween, and it was always advertised. It was always like a way to draw people into the church as well, and for the youth to be involved. And some of the older adults were in it too, if they couldn't get enough people to fill all the roles. So how it was set up was the whole pulpit area was cleared. There was no podium, the instruments were taken away, and it was clear and had like, I think, 5 chairs, and that was really all that was up there. And the lights were turned down when the play was about to start. I had to put on low. Pastor would always come to the front and make a few announcements, and then wrapping up his announcements he would say, "Now if you have any small children, please be aware that it's going to get dark and there'll be some noise." This is shocking to me in hindsight, because even talking with my husband, who also saw this play, by the way, a few times, and actually was in it one year, neither of us recall the pastor ever warning the audience that this was going to be about demons and angels and horrible, scary things that children should not probably be seeing. Neither of us remember him warning kids about that. It was, if you have very small children, it's going to get dark, and if they can't handle that, they should leave. But if they can handle that, they can stay. So anyway, the play would start out, 5 people in the front. They all had signs on them. The music got really dramatic, and they had a spotlight. And so they had these 5 people on stage with these signs. And the spotlight would go from one person to another. Now, on the side, the main character, who was supposed to be a godly Christian, and someone else from the church were having a discussion about these 5 people, and he was telling them, about each of their horrible situations, that they were tied up and bound by sin, essentially. So, while this was going on, and it was kind of like was some kind of narration, the spotlight would go from person to person, these 5 people. Also, these 5 people with the signs on them had fake chains that were held by demons. They were dressed in all black. They had these black masks, expressionless mask. They had a shape, like you could see the face, but there was only slits so that people could see, and that's really it. And, you know, these people would hold the chains, and you know, they're bound by these demons, literal demons. You watch these 5 things. And then the main character, who was usually played by the pastor's son, who, by the way, at this point, when I was 16 or 17 watching this, the pastor's son was about 2 or 3 years younger than me. So a 13 or 14-year-old was playing the main character in this play. Has his Bible in hand, and he starts to pray for all these people. And while he's praying, these white figures that look exactly like the demons, but they're dressed in white instead, with the white masks, come out one by one and start wrestling with these demons that these people are struggling with. And they're wrestling as this, and there's music going on and dramaticness, you know, all this. And the angels, which is what they're supposed to represent, threw the demons off the pulpit eventually and won the war because this guy had prayed and they were delivered from their sins. And then afterwards there'd be a long prayer and exciting and people being prayed to be saved and all this stuff, and it was very inspirational, perhaps. That's how I thought of it at the time. Now please understand, this play was not really meant to be taken metaphorically, at least not my interpretation of it. This church believed in literal demons. I heard lots of stories about literal demon possessions while I was in this church, which I'll talk about more in later videos. So I became very anti-Halloween after seeing this, and I saw this play about 3 times, maybe more, and it had a very profound impact on me. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was fabulous at the time. In fact, a year or 2 later, I invited a guy friend of mine to go to that service because I thought it was so powerful, and he got saved that day, which I'll talk about that more in other videos as well. So this is really one of the big things that started making me more and more superstitious. And I was very vocal about my anti-Halloween. I mean, I didn't tell people who didn't go to church about it, but if people were in church or people were Christians and people talked to me about Halloween, I would tell them. I was very anti-Halloween. I would not celebrate it. I would not do anything related to it. I would not dress up. I would not celebrate Halloween. Halloween was evil, and I believed that I could feel more evil on Halloween. Literally. So yeah, that's how I became anti-Halloween, and how the church I went to at the time really perceived it, obviously. So, okay guys, more stories to come.